Thanks very much. Sorry about this technical fluke. When Andre asked me to attend this, to participate in this workshop, I accepted not because I had anything particularly interesting to say. I don't have a paper the way you guys have. I've been thinking of those matters, but in a very loose way. But I accepted because I thought I would learn a lot. And in that regard, it's been a smashing success. I've learned so much during this day and a half. I really want to thank you very much. I've learned a lot. And this is not only a captatio benevolentiae, I don't know if this expression still exists in Cambridge, but it's also to say that in many ways, although this is the concluding talk, it should be the beginning talk of the sort of questions that I ask myself and to which, the papers have provided at least partial answers. In other words, if I had to rewrite the paper, it would be quite different from what I'm going to present now, but I don't have the sort of swiftness of mind to actually change my presentation. So I think that basically we've been discussing three issues that I want to distinguish. Very simple. First of all, there's the whole empiricism debate around, whether pattern detection within big data with less theory can go very far in principle and in practice. The second question is there anything like genuine intelligence, understanding, scientific agency? And the third question is whether there is a sort of new style of scientific thinking or reasoning underway. And if so, what kind of, in what way is it a new style? And so what I'm going to introduce a little bit also in order to put these questions in relief is sort of a diachronic perspective, not fully diachronic, but more future looking. I mean, we're all asking ourselves, where are we now and where shall we be tomorrow? Sort of implicitly. So I would say that I want to defend a continuity thesis about the present state of affairs. That is, today's AI and today's science. So I have this quote from Rosking and co-authors saying, stating all these wonderful things that AI can do today. And to simplify matters, I don't want to contest that. I want to take this as true or approximately true. But yet I think that although even accepting the previous slide, I think that AI tools and other computational devices used in science are essentially cut from the same cloth. That's the one part of my continuity thesis. First of all, if I look at the papers, I don't have the acute view that, for example, Eamon has, but still I've looked at a number of papers and it seems to me that there's not a moment where you say, well, this is sort of the old computational stuff, and then suddenly, there's AI, and AI somehow changes things. Just reading the papers from an external point of view, that's the impression that I get. And in fact, there's some things which has not been at all discussed during this day and a half, and it's probably for good reason. It's probably not a good question, but no one has asked or provided a sort of outline of what AI is with respect to computation in general or information science or informatics. So I assume by default that you all think that it's more or less continuous or not. I don't know. Anyway, that's a question that I want to often ask when people discuss AI. I never know whether they mean, information and communication technology in general, the digital world, the digital sphere in general, or whether they mean something more specific that's more or less, represented by the tradition of AI research from, the Dartmouth conference in 1956 to ChatGPT, generative AI, and so on. King and co-authors defend the specificity of AI in this way. Several advanced features distinguish robot scientists from other complex laboratory systems, such as et cetera, et cetera. These are their integral AI software. There are many complex internal cycles, such as hypothesis generation, selection, evaluation, and refinement, and their ability to execute individually planned cycles of experiments at high throughput. So why do I say it's a weak defense? It's not so weak because it sort of accumulates a lot of arguments, but it's weak because it's a hodgepodge of various mechanisms or systems that have no clear unity between them. So it's as if AI was just a bunch of techniques, which is okay, but then the continuity thesis is reinforced by that. Just, bunch of more advanced, for the moment more advanced, tomorrow they'll be less advanced compared to today, computational techniques. Second, it's my feeling that these new techniques, these new AI techniques, don't displace the scientists. And on the contrary, I think the scientist's role is increased on the input side. It requires additional skills. I mean, not only do you have to be a clever, say, molecular biologist or archaeologist, but in addition, you've got to master these AI techniques and get them to do what you want them to do. So it seems that the scientist's individual or collective contribution is actually augmented rather than reduced. Another thing that seems to argue against the displacement of scientists, when you look at automation, so automation clearly in some ways dispenses the human being with certain things, but still robots don't decide. They follow a complex if-then routine. So like in computer science since day one, and they don't produce scientific knowledge. They produce data that only in the proper hands or in the proper minds becomes scientific knowledge. And it's the minds that turn those data, however sophisticated and modeled and so on, into scientific knowledge. So there's work at the output side, on the output side. So the creative power that actually King and his co-authors do recognize as important. Importantly, all these remarkable capabilities remain complementary to the creative power of human scientists. This creative power is not only on the input side, hypothesis generation, topic fixation, and so on, but also on the output side. And finally, data, however, they can substitute for thinking. So this slide, we can replace the slide with the talk given by Meg, which I completely agree with. I'll just run the arguments, some of the arguments quickly here. But again, I mean, Meg's talk with a much better rendering of this idea that I can achieve right now. Data are never raw, patterns of what entities to look for. Basic ontology doesn't come for free. Derived ontology can come for free through AI models. These are basically what the internal units of your deep learning networks give you. And that's very interesting, as you all know, but the initial ontology comes from the scientists. Correlation, unguided search yields too many patterns, so there's a defective clutter. In actual practice, for example, in the large hadron collider example that was given in one of the talks, it's by hand that a feasible proportion of these patterns were actually examined. And in fact, there's a mathematical proof that the more parameters, the more accidental correlations, too many data smother relevant data. So apparently I'm not a statistician, but apparently all good statisticians know that. And there is this proof given by Kaluga and Mongo in the 2017 paper. Now, correlations aren't enough, of course. We want understanding and capacity to intervene, without which requires mechanisms. And then there was someone said something or suggested that the social problems, and generally for complex systems, finance, nonlinear physics, and social phenomena, which involve many kinds of entities and many parameters, big data seem the way to go. But from what I hear, again, it's something that I'm reporting on. I haven't proved it myself. The convergence of the law of large numbers is too slow to provide enough representative data. So all of this argues in favor of a limited role of these AIs in the present state of AI, in the present state of science. Now, we can now project ourselves in the future on two dimensions. First, what is going to be AI tomorrow and what is going to be science tomorrow? So my title is very provocative with my give or take. I apologize for this right now. Tomorrow's AI, tomorrow's science. So we want really, the idea is that tomorrow we'll have really intelligent robot scientists. So today, robots require human intelligence. Granted, tomorrow that intelligence will be incorporated in the robots. And so genuinely intelligent robots is what we need. And there's quite a number of arguments saying that we won't solve the problems of humanity, climate change, growing inequality, and so on, if we don't have more powerful scientists, and they can only be those robots of tomorrow. And the idea is that these robots are around the corner, so we can sort of that humanity will be saved. And I want to sort of very briefly not argue for or against by first degree arguments, but sort of draw our attention to the fact that there's sort of a talk of irresistible progress and eventual victory. So that's what I call the irresistible pull of AGI, artificial general intelligence, or sometimes called human level real intelligence, and sometimes super human level intelligence. So it started from the very beginning. Most of you, I'm sure, know this quote from Bert Simon, 1957. You teach your undergrad, you give it to your undergraduate students. I can summarize the situation. Is to say the best way is to say that there are now in the world machines that think, that learn, and that create. Moreover, their ability to do these things is going to increase rapidly until, in a visible future, the range of problems they can handle will be coextensive with a range to which the human mind has been applied. And you have a similar quote from Marvin Minsky a little later on. And there's sort of this imagery of irresistible progress, what I call stage 5, because due to the self-driving cars, right, vehicles, which are supposed to be at, stage 3 or maybe stage 4, and eventually they'll be at stage 5, which is they'll be entirely autonomous, etc. And I don't know if you know Max. You've seen this picture by Max Tegmark, which he uses in some of his talks. You can find them on YouTube. And the idea is that the level of the sea is right in AI, right, in the present state, and it's rising. And as it rises, it will more or less overcome, submerge every single part of the landscape, some parts of which are harder to get. For example, science is always there, but you have theorem proving a little further down. And it's this sort of idea that the successes of today are predictive of the successes of tomorrow. And I think that there's similar sort of rhetorical bias when we talk about full AI science. We again have this sort of lexicon of irresistible rise. We talk about full potential, challenge, next stage, that sort of thing. Look at this quote from Hector Zeno, who did his thesis with a friend of mine many years ago. These advances These advances, the current cutting-edge innovations, provide to unleash AI's potential for searching and discovering the fundamental structure of our world beyond what human scientists have achieved or can achieve. Today, in certain areas of laboratory-based science, some systems have reached level 4. So, level 5 is just around the corner. Eric Schmidt, this is how AI will transform the way science gets done. LLMs at their core work by predicting the next word in a sentence. This technique could enable them to predict the next discovery in physics or biology. Of course, the part I haven't filled in may contain the argument, but the truth is there's no argument. It's just great. Zettel again, open-ended innovation and hypothesis generation, and how to create and search over unbounded hypothesis spaces in less well-specified domains is an open challenge in itself. Again, sort of challenge thing. If it's a challenge, someone will meet the challenge. I have yet another one, so that's Mario Kren, who is not here today, right? He was here yesterday. Wonderful talk he gave. In this article on scientific understanding of artificial intelligence. In the first 2 dimensions, the AI enables humans to gain new scientific understanding, whereas in the last, the machine gains understanding itself. The 3rd dimension is that of AI as an agent of understanding. So we have to look at the article in full to see exactly how this sort of rhetorical trick is performed. It's a very nice paper. I'm not criticizing this. I'm not criticizing any of this. I'm just pointing out to the rhetorical setup of, again, victory. Today's success means victory tomorrow. So another thing I'd like to say about this tomorrow's science and tomorrow's AI, I want to ask whether AGI, which is the idea that artificial intelligence at the human level or general, whatever you want to exactly define it, the debates on what exactly AGI is supposed to mean, and full AI science go together. Full AI science is the science done entirely by autonomous systems, autonomous robots, and so on, and algorithms. So do they go together? I mean, after all, it's not absolutely obvious. In fact, they don't go together. I think that AGI without full AI science is quite possible, just because regular human intelligence is not enough for full-scale science. We need at least collective intelligence, and then we need depth, some sort of capacity for insight, for sense of the field. As Alex Davis, who's the co-author of the paper that was shown on screen during the first talk, and I'll get back to it soon if I have time. It is clear that intuition plays an important role in elite performance in many human pursuits. So if we had intelligent robots tomorrow, that might not be enough to do deep science. Maybe routine science, normal science, but maybe not deep science. And I think that full AI science without AGI is also a possibility, because I've been listening with great interest to these very learned and good talks about scientific understanding, which is a literature that I don't master at all. And it struck me that scientific understanding, however you want to however you understand it, how you want to account for it, is still based on something like primary understanding, the basic intentionality of the agents. So you could conceivably have scientific understanding with all the trimmings without having the sort of basic intentionality of human beings, human agents. So you would have full AI science, but you would not have fully intelligent beings, because presumably fully intelligent beings, a fully intelligent system, would have this basic intentionality. So you could have one without the other. And I think that neither one is plausible. Again, that's very provocative and probably is going to anger some of you because there are not many arguments, but for what it's worth, I want to say that artificial general intelligence is, first of all, the burden of proof is not on those who are skeptical like myself, but on those who say it's around the corner. And of course, there are arguments. I'm not saying there are no arguments, but I want to say the burden of the proof is on the side of the optimists. And also because I have a more general argument that I tried to develop a little bit day before yesterday in the talk I gave at the metaphysics group. I want to claim that intelligence is not merely problem solving. Well, AI systems really only solve problems. Basically, they don't pose the problem, they solve the problem beneath. And full human intelligence without, roughly speaking, very quickly posing problems. Now about the full AI scientist, again, I think it's a question of not burden of proof. And I think that, and that's maybe a harder point to make, that science is not only problem solving. Actually, I think all of you competent philosophers of science, I think you would agree that science is not really problem solving, at least in a strict sense of problem. So let me, I forgot to, how many?
Yeah, sorry, we are, you have about 5 minutes.
Okay, then I have to quickly go over the third part, which I think in a way is the most interesting. Not that my contribution is particularly interesting, but it's what we really are, I think, we have mostly focused on during this 1.5 days. So it's essentially today's AI, thinking that AI is not going to be out of the blue suddenly become super intelligent, but it's going to be basically what it is now with bells and whistles and progress, but which is already in the process of changing science and will certainly be changing tomorrow's science. So this is the combination I want to really run you through. So this is why I was going to discuss this example from mathematics from this paper that was quoted by Eamon earlier. He was going to actually discuss the other example, but he didn't have time, and I won't have much time either. So these are the two results that David and his collaborators, one of whom is a star of representation theory, so you can believe that the result is interesting. So there's this issue of knots that was going to be discussed by Eamon, and I was going to try to give you an idea of how this proof of a long-standing open conjecture in representation theory has been obtained. I think I'm going to have to let me just. There's the flow chart of the framework, which is very interesting. Basically, you have an entity which can take different value, and there are two properties that you conjecture are attached in an interesting way to the same entity. And so you get a lot of data by saying, the value of the first parameter linked to the entity is so much, the second is so much. So you have a function, you have a lot of data, and then you get a deep learning model to mimic this function. So that's step one. And the second step is to see what makes the function, which is as modeled by the deep learning model network, what gives it its shape. And so you use methods of attribution, which are the basic in the toolkit of explanatory AI. What tends to give the function the shape it has, and that inspires the mathematician to a conjecture about the link between the first parameter and the second parameter. I'm sorry, I'm sure that was not particularly, that was a little obscure, but I think that's all all I can do today. So then I want to ask, Kren has this in a very optimistic paper. He says that we've not seen AI uncover hidden patterns or irregularities in scientific data previously overlooked by humans, as opposed to this mathematical result or other results. And I wanted to give you a couple of examples from cognitive neuroscience. One which is well known and is pretty old now, almost 9 years. So that's before generative AI, and another one which is more recent. And I'm out of time and I wanted, if I had organized my time better, or my talk better, I would have asked you whether you think that these results are of the kind that Kren was asking about. Are these examples where AI has uncovered hidden patterns or irregularities? I think they're more on the confirming side, but still there's this stuff that is really unexpected.
You can still have a couple of minutes.
Okay. So this one, I think maybe the previous one, although it's older, so it seems, and you probably know of it. But basically, the idea is that you have you're looking at visual cortex and the higher layers, high level of the cortex, and you wonder how they perform in categorization tasks. And apparently neuroscientists with their hands were unable to account for that. And what they did is they trained a neural network model that matches the human performance on difficult object categorization tasks. And the only thing the model was asked to is to perform, to give the right answer. It was not asked to do anything about the inner structure. And it turns out that the inside units, the hidden units of the system, reflect what's going on in the lower levels. So it seems that the model, although it was only meant to mimic the performance, has actually uncovered or mimicked the internal structure of the system. So cannot say much more. I have a few more slides. So basically, I want to defend that what will be happening increasingly in science tomorrow is that we're going to have an exploration within negotiated boundaries. And there I have a three-stage thing where the scientist does almost everything except explore the restricted area. And stage 2, the boundaries are not drawn with the help of AI. So it's a collaboration between the AI and the scientists, which perimeter do we want to explore. And finally, stage 3, in which it is indeed a closed loop AI, but it's set up by human, and it is under human supervision, as was shown actually eloquently by a slide that was shown earlier. So very quickly, and then I'll stop. I'd say that I believe that science is going to move in this direction, roughly speaking. And I just want to point to pitfalls. One is what I call negative attractors. I don't know whether there probably is a term of art, which I do not know. And the other is de-skilling. So we have these quotes from Schmidt and from Zennel saying, it's going to be more and more AI by themselves without human supervision mostly. And I think that the problem is that if the AI starts going wrong, loses its path, it could be that the self-sustaining process whereby an initial error would be confirmed and giving more and more data going in the wrong direction or interpreted by the system in the wrong direction. That's self-amplifying error. And de-skilling, I think, is a real concern.
So this is a sentence taken from a recent article on the famous melanoma case. And over by MD, by a medical doctor, overall lines on these models may lead to reduction in human expertise in oncology. And this will in turn result in an inability to identify when the models are wrong. I think this is a very important issue, actually, this de-skilling. It comes up in general education as well. I think it's something that we really have to think about. And I think there's a sort of something that's even worse, that the fact that doctors tomorrow, dermatologists tomorrow will not be able to judge the validity of a response produced by a system. It may lose the norm itself. It may just, the very idea that there's a norm which is other than what is provided by automatic system will be lost. So, and that's my last slide, lose some, win some towards a new style of scientific thinking. I was going to quickly remind you of Alistair Crombie's idea of scientific styles of scientific reasoning. What I think is important is that in a certain Einhacking's sentence, in a certain sense, each style is autonomous and self-authenticating. I think this is what is under development. I think this, as some people have pointed out, it's already started with Paul Humphrey's 2004 volume. And that's really the final thing. I think that this new style will rely even more on the collective dimension that was mentioned several times, with a new kind of participant with quasi-agency, what Human calls mixed agents. So we'll have mixed agent science tomorrow. Thank you very much.